She said the review was routine. Then, my phone vibrated with a security alert on the only account my paycheck goes into. She asked me to wait and didn't look up again. The counter was cool under my palms. I slid my ID closer to the glass and set my card beside it, face down. The teller kept her fingers on the keyboard, not moving. The printer behind her hummed and stopped. The line shifted once, then settled. "It shouldn't take long," she said, still watching the screen. I nodded. I didn't ask what kind of review. I didn't ask what triggered it. I watched the cursor blink in the same place. A man behind me cleared his throat and stepped back half a shoe length, giving space that wasn't needed. My phone vibrated again. Same alert. Same wording. I turned the screen toward myself and lowered it to the counter. The teller's eyes flicked down, then back up to the monitor. She pressed a key, paused, then pressed another. "Do you have another form of ID?" she asked. I slid my license back toward her. She took it with 2 fingers and placed it on the scanner, careful not to smudge the photo. The scanner light passed once, then again. The screen changed. Her shoulders lifted and settled. "I'm just going to make a quick call," she said. "Please wait here." She turned her chair and picked up the phone. The cord stretched across the desk. She spoke softly, using words that sounded practiced. "Yes, that account. Yes, now." The alert came through during the interaction. I kept my hands still. The laminated sign taped to the glass said, "Please have your ID ready." Someone in line read it aloud to no one and laughed once. No one joined. The teller listened. She nodded without sound. She covered the receiver and glanced at my phone again, face down now, like my card. "They're reviewing," she said. "It's standard." I didn't respond. I moved my wallet an inch to the left, so it wasn't touching the edge of the counter. The metal trim caught the light. The alert icon flashed once before dimming. She hung up and typed. The keyboard clicks were faster now, then slower. She stopped and stared. The printer whirred and spit out a half sheet that she tore and slid under the desk. "Could you step to the side for a moment?" she asked, pointing to the square of floor near the brochure rack. I stepped where she pointed. The rack held glossy pamphlets about savings accounts and fraud protection. One pamphlet had been bent at the corner. I straightened it and let it fall back. From the side, I could see the screen at an angle. A banner ran across the top in a pale color, the words small but centered. She leaned forward, blocking it with her shoulder. The man who had cleared his throat earlier leaned to read, then looked away. "I'm sorry," she said, turning halfway toward me. "This happens sometimes." I nodded again. The air conditioning vent clicked on. A woman 2 places back checked her watch and put it away. The teller tapped her pen against the desk once, then set it down in the holder with care. Another vibration. I didn't pick up the phone this time. The teller did. She spoke again, quieter. "The alert says one thing," she said. "The notes say another." She listened longer now. Her eyes moved line by line. She stopped typing altogether. "I'll wait," I said, because there was nothing else to say that would move anything forward. She covered the receiver and met my eyes for the first time. "Thank you," she said, and meant the waiting, not the words. She turned back to the screen. Her posture changed, not dramatic, just more upright. She typed a short line, then erased it. The banner stayed. The cursor blinked. Behind me, someone shuffled papers. A child asked for a pen. The teller lifted her hand, palm out, to the line without looking back. The line went quiet. She hung up again. This time, she didn't reach for the keyboard. She folded her hands and sat still, reading. The printer stayed silent. The clock on the wall clicked to the next minute. "I'm going to ask my supervisor to take a look," she said. "It shouldn't be a problem." She slid my ID back across the counter, but not the card. The card stayed where it was, face down, unmoved. She stood and walked to the end of the counter, heels soft on tile. The gate behind the desks opened and closed. I stayed where I was. The square of floor near the brochure rack felt warmer than the counter. I could hear the low voices at the end of the line, the words indistinct. The banner on the screen remained, pale and patient. My phone vibrated once more, then stopped. The supervisor didn't come right away. The teller returned to her chair and sat like she was trying not to take up space. She pulled a small notepad from a drawer, wrote a time in the corner, and tore the page off cleanly. I put in the request, she said. They're looking at it. My card was still on her side of the counter. I could see the edge of it under the glass, the same corner I'd worn smooth with my thumb over the years. I kept my hands on my wallet instead, opening it and closing it once, like that counted as doing something. The line behind me rearranged itself. A woman stepped into the spot I'd been standing in and then stopped when she realized the counter wasn't open. She looked at the teller, then at me, then down at the floor. Her mouth tightened, like she'd been handed a delay she didn't ask for. The teller picked up the phone again. This time she didn't lower her voice as much. She spoke in short phrases, careful and flat. Yes, I'm at the window. Yes, the alert came through at the same time. I'm looking at it now. She reached for the keyboard with her free hand and tapped a sequence I couldn't see. The screen brightened, then dimmed. Her eyes narrowed, not angry, more like she was reading something that didn't belong there. I moved my phone an inch farther from the edge of the counter and flipped it face down again. The vibration had stopped, but the idea of it sat there anyway. Do you know how long? The woman behind me asked. Not to me. To the air. The teller covered the receiver and gave a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. Just a moment. The woman exhaled through her nose and stepped back. Two people behind her started whispering, the kind of whisper that tries to be private but isn't. I stared at the pamphlets on the rack. Fraud protection. Mobile alerts. What to do if you think you're a victim. The paper was glossy and too bright for how quiet the room was getting. The teller scribbled again on the torn notepad page. I saw a few numbers, then a dash. She read them back into the phone. Yes, she said. That time. That's what I'm saying. She listened. Still, her pen hovered over the paper. When she wrote again, her handwriting got smaller, more compressed, like she was trying to fit the facts into less space. I didn't ask what she was writing. I didn't ask who she was talking to. I watched her hand move and stop. She hung up and turned the notepad page over. The back was blank. She wrote one more line and slid the paper under the keyboard, half hidden, like it wasn't supposed to be seen. I'm going to have to keep your card here while they check, she said. I looked down at the counter surface, smooth and scuffed at the same time. Okay, I said. She hesitated, as if she expected a different word. Her eyes flicked up quickly, then down again. It's temporary, she added. It's just how the process works. The phrase landed on the counter between us. Temporary. Process. Works. The line behind me heard it, and I felt the smallest shift, like people decided that meant something about me, even if they didn't know what. She pulled a small tray closer and set my card inside it, face down. The plastic made a soft tap against the tray. She pushed the tray back under the desk. I kept my hands in view, palms resting on my wallet. If I clenched them, it would look like something. If I asked too many questions, it would look like something else. So I didn't. A man farther back in line made a quiet joke about banks always doing this. Nobody laughed. He looked down at his phone and stopped trying. The teller clicked her mouse twice, then stopped. She stared at the screen, then turned it slightly away from the line, using her body like a curtain. I can offer to print your recent activity, she said, voice careful. But the hold might still be there. The word hold felt heavier than temporary. I shook my head once. No, I said. I'll wait. She nodded quickly, relieved by the simplicity. She opened a drawer and pulled out a small card with the bank's customer service number. She slid it toward me, stopping it before it reached my fingertips. If you want to call, she said. They may tell you the same thing I'm seeing. I didn't take the card yet. I looked at it. The paper was stiff and clean, like it belonged to someone who had done nothing wrong. Behind the desk, her phone screen lit up. She tapped it and frowned. Then she took the desk phone again, dialed, and waited with the receiver pressed to her ear. As she listened, she opened her computer's call screen. I watched her click into a log. A small window appeared, full of boxes and times. She typed something in one of them. She paused, then typed again, more firmly. A record. A trace. A way the system remembered what she was doing. Yes, she said. I'm logging the call. Yes, right now. She looked over her shoulder toward the gate behind the desks. It stayed closed. Her foot shifted under her chair as if she wanted to stand but didn't want to draw attention. I'm sorry, she said again, softer. I know this is uncomfortable. I nodded once. I picked up the stiff customer service card and set it beside my phone, both face down. I could feel the eyes from the line, not sharp, but present. A little boy near the lobby chairs swung his legs and kicked the metal base of a chair. The sound rang once, then his parent put a hand on his knee. The chair stopped. The teller covered the receiver. "They're saying it needs a supervisor review," she said. "I'm waiting on her." I didn't ask where the supervisor was. I didn't ask why this couldn't happen faster. The teller already knew I wanted it faster. Everybody did. She uncovered the receiver and listened again. Her face stayed neutral, but her fingers tightened around the pen. "Yes," she said. "I understand." Then quieter, like she didn't want anyone else to hear the words at all. "The alert says one thing. The notes say another." She stopped. Her eyes moved left to right. Reading. I watched the gate behind the desks. The latch clicked, and the gate opened. A woman in a dark blazer stepped through, holding a folder against her chest. She didn't look at the line first. She looked at the teller's screen. The teller straightened and slid her chair back an inch. The sound was small, but the whole line heard it. The supervisor's mouth tightened as she read. She didn't speak yet. She lifted a hand slightly, palm down. The quiet signal for patience, and the teller went still. I stayed at the side of the counter. My ID was in my hand now, warm from being held. My card was out of sight under the desk. The supervisor leaned closer to the monitor. "Show me the time the alert came in," she said. The supervisor didn't take the folder off her chest. She held it there with her forearm, like it was part of her posture. Her nails were short, unpainted. She leaned toward the screen and pointed with one finger, not touching anything. "Show me the time the alert came in," she said again. The teller's hand moved to the mouse. She clicked, then hesitated, then clicked again. The cursor jumped. A small window opened with a list of times in a thin font. I picked up my phone and turned it over. The alert was still there. Same sentence. Same timestamp. I didn't read it out loud. I didn't need to. The supervisor's eyes had already found the time on the screen. Behind me, the line quieted in a way that felt intentional, not polite, just aware. Paper stopped rustling. A throat cleared, and then the person seemed to regret it. The teller said, "It came in while I was processing her request." The supervisor's eyes stayed on the monitor. "And the account notes say what?" The teller swallowed. She tapped the keyboard, and the screen shifted to another panel. I could only see the edge of it from where I stood, but the supervisor angled her body just enough to block the line from reading along. "The note says it's a routine review," the teller said. The supervisor paused. She kept her finger lifted, as if she was holding her place in the air. "Routine reviews don't usually fire that alert," she said, calm and flat. The teller nodded too fast. She reached under the keyboard and pulled out the torn notepad page from part 2. She slid it forward like it was a small offering. "I wrote down the times," she said. The supervisor didn't take the paper. She looked at it and then looked at the screen again. "Print the account status banner," she said. The teller's chair rolled back a fraction. The sound was a soft scrape on tile, but it carried. She clicked into a menu and hovered. "I don't know if we—" she started. "Print it," the supervisor repeated, still not raising her voice. The teller clicked. The printer behind them woke up with a whir, louder than it needed to be. The line behind me went still, the way people get still when they don't want to be seen looking. A sheet fed through. The teller caught it and held it close to her body before she lowered it to the counter. The supervisor took it with 2 fingers and laid it beside her folder. I could see the top line from where I stood, even with the supervisor trying to keep it close. "Temporary hold review in progress." It was printed in black and gray, like it was nothing, like it was weather. The woman who'd asked how long in part 2 leaned to the side, and I felt her eyes land on the paper. She didn't say anything. She just tightened her grip on her purse strap. The supervisor looked at me for the first time. Her expression didn't change, but her attention did. "What were you trying to do today?" she asked. "Withdraw cash," I said. "How much?" I told her. I kept my voice even. The amount wasn't dramatic. It was groceries and gas and a school fee due by Friday. It was normal life. The supervisor nodded once, like she was filing it. She tapped the printed sheet with a fingernail. "And you received an alert while you were standing here," she said. "Yes." The supervisor looked at the teller. "Did you trigger any fraud protocol?" The teller shook her head quickly. No, I was just processing. Then the alert came. Then the hold appeared. The supervisor's gaze dropped to the printout again. She read the line as if she'd never seen it before, as if the words might change under pressure. I felt my phone vibrate against the counter surface. A short buzz. The alert refreshed itself with the same timestamp, like it was stubborn. The man behind me, the one who had cleared his throat earlier, shifted his weight. He wasn't pretending not to listen anymore. Nobody was. The supervisor said, "Pull up the exact timestamp on the hold." The teller clicked through tabs. The screen changed, then changed again. Her hand hovered over the mouse, and then stopped. Her lips parted slightly, as if she was about to say something she didn't like. "There isn't a hold time," she said. "It just appears." The supervisor's eyes narrowed, not angry, just focused. She reached into her folder and took out a blank form with the bank logo on it. She set it on the counter, squared to the edge. She placed a pen beside it, also squared. The line watched the pen the way people watch a needle in a quiet room. "Then we document what we can see," the supervisor said. She looked at the teller. "Open the activity log." Not the notes. The activity. The teller's fingers moved faster. A list of entries filled the screen. The supervisor leaned in closer. The teller leaned back, giving space without being asked. I watched the supervisor's hand. It didn't shake. It didn't hover. It moved from the screen to the form and back again, steady. The supervisor said, "This is a false positive more often than it's real. But we don't guess. We verify." The teller nodded so hard her ponytail shifted. The woman with the purse strap exhaled, loud enough to be heard. She stopped herself mid-breath, as if she'd remembered she was witnessing something private. I kept my hands on my wallet. I opened it, then closed it, then slid it a little farther from the counter edge. My card was still out of sight under the desk. The absence of it felt like a missing tooth. The supervisor pointed at a line on the screen. "What's that?" she asked. The teller blinked and leaned forward. That's a login attempt," she said. "But it's not from her device." The line behind me tightened. I heard someone stop scrolling on their phone. The sound of a thumb on glass ceased. The supervisor didn't react. She just nodded once, like the system had finally offered a fact. She picked up the desk phone and dialed. The teller watched her hands, like she was watching someone else take control of a fire. When the call connected, the supervisor spoke calmly. "This is branch services. I need fraud to confirm the trigger source. I have the alert time and an in-person transaction attempt." She listened. Her eyes stayed on the screen, not on me. I stood at the side of the counter, close enough to be involved, far enough to feel the line's judgment. The brochure rack beside me held a pamphlet titled Fraud Protection with a picture of a smiling family. I pressed the bent corner flat again, then let it spring back. The supervisor covered the receiver and looked at the teller. "Do not tell her anything that isn't verified," she said. The teller swallowed and nodded. The supervisor uncovered the receiver again. "Read me the trigger details," she said. Her eyes moved left to right as she listened, then stopped. The pen on the counter rolled a millimeter on its own and came to rest against the edge of the form. The supervisor's voice stayed even. "Say that again," she said into the phone. The supervisor kept the receiver at her ear. She didn't fill the silence with anything extra. The teller stood beside her chair with her hands folded in front of her, like she was waiting to be dismissed. The line stayed quiet. Not kind. Just listening. The supervisor's eyes tracked across the screen once more. Then she wrote a time on the blank form. Her pen made a soft scratch. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "I'm going to verify the trigger," she said. "That means a few minutes." I nodded. I kept my phone face down. The alert had already said what it wanted to say. She turned slightly away from the counter, still close enough to see the monitor. Her voice on the call stayed level. "Yes," she said. "The customer is here in person. The alert timestamp is during the interaction." She listened. Her jaw tightened once, then released. That was the only reaction she allowed herself. The teller leaned toward the screen and clicked where the supervisor pointed. A list refreshed small entries. Lines stacked like receipts. The teller's finger hovered over one line, then moved away, as if she didn't want to be the one to select it. "Open it," the supervisor said. The teller clicked. Another pane appeared with more detail. The supervisor leaned in and read, then held her palm out, low, the quiet signal to slow down. "Print the activity," she said. The teller hesitated just long enough for the line to notice. Then she reached for the printer menu. The printer started up again. The sound pulled eyes toward the desk, even if people tried not to look. The teller caught the pages as they slid out, 2 sheets this time, and handed them straight to the supervisor without reading them. The supervisor laid the pages on the counter, squared to the edge. She didn't slide them toward me. She didn't keep them hidden. She just placed them there like paperwork that belonged to the moment. I could see the top lines. A login attempt. A time. A location label that wasn't my town. The supervisor tapped the line once with her pen. "This is the trigger," she said, mostly to the teller, not to me. Not the withdrawal. The teller's shoulders dropped a fraction, like she'd been holding a story that didn't fit. The supervisor kept listening on the phone. She turned her head slightly and watched the teller click into another screen. "Now match that to the alert time," she said. The teller clicked. A timestamp appeared. She read it, then looked up at the supervisor with a quick, uncertain glance. "It matches," the teller said. The line behind me didn't move. Someone shifted a foot and then froze again, like motion would be rude. I rested my fingertips on the counter surface. The same cool laminate. The same scuffs. My ID sat near my hand. My card was still under the desk in the tray, face down, out of reach. The supervisor covered the receiver for the first time and spoke quietly. "Did you try to log in from a different device today?" she asked me. "No," I said. "What device do you normally use?" "My phone," I said, and I lifted it, then set it back down, face down again. She nodded once. No judgment. Just placement. She uncovered the receiver and went back to the call. "Customer confirms it's not their device," she said. "I need the verification steps." She listened. Her eyes moved across the printed page again, not trusting memory. While she listened, the teller's desk phone lit up with a blinking indicator. The teller pointed at it, silently. The supervisor glanced, then nodded at the teller. "Play it," she said. The teller pressed a button. A tinny voice filled the small space behind the glass, louder than anyone meant it to be. "This is compliance review," the voice said, "calling about the security alert mismatch. The in-branch interaction did not generate the trigger. Verification is required before release." The teller's cheeks flushed. She reached to lower the volume, but the message had already landed. The line heard it. The man behind me stopped pretending he was somewhere else. The woman with the purse strap stared at the pamphlets like they were subtitles she could hide behind. The supervisor didn't react to the volume mistake. She only listened until the message ended, then she pressed the button again and replayed one sentence, quieter this time, more controlled. "The in-branch interaction did not generate the trigger." She let it stop there. "That's our confirmation," she said. And the way she said it wasn't comfort. It was procedure. The teller exhaled through her nose. She nodded once. Slow. The supervisor turned to the screen again. "Now we release access," she said, but she didn't move yet. She looked at the teller. "We release it correctly." The teller's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "I need an override?" the teller asked. "Not yet," the supervisor said. "First, we document the log. Then we clear the flag." She lifted the printed pages and aligned their corners with the counter edge. Then she slid the blank form closer and wrote another line short, factual, no commentary. A time. A note about the voicemail. A note about the activity log. I watched her handwriting. It was neat and small, like someone who had done this before and didn't need to perform it. The teller opened a drawer and pulled out a small metal stamp. She set it down and didn't touch it. The supervisor noticed the stamp and shook her head once. "No stamp," she said. "Just the record." The teller pushed the stamp back into the drawer, slow, like she was putting away a habit. The supervisor finally looked at me again. "I'm going to need you to confirm one more thing," she said. "If you can't, we pause it longer." I didn't ask what it was. I waited. She slid a small printed sheet toward me, not the activity log, a separate form with a few checkboxes. She placed a pen beside it, squared, like before. "Sign that you didn't initiate that login," she said. "Then I can request the release." I picked up the pen. It was lighter than I expected. I read the sentence once. "No accusations. Just language the bank could file. Behind me, the line stayed quiet. No one complained. No one offered sympathy. They were watching the system decide what it believed. I held the pen above the paper for a beat. Then I heard my phone vibrate, soft against the counter. Not the same alert this time. A new notification banner lit the top of the screen before I turned it over. New device sign-in detected. The supervisor's eyes caught it from the angle she was standing. She didn't say, "Oh." She didn't say, "That's strange." She just held out her hand, palm up, and said, "Let me see that." The supervisor didn't take my phone from my hand. She didn't need to. She leaned in and read the banner the way she'd read everything else quietly, like it was a line item. "New device sign-in detected," she said, and her voice stayed level. The teller made a small sound in her throat and stopped herself. She turned her screen slightly, then turned it back, like she remembered the line behind me could see reflections. The supervisor held her palm out again, low. "A slow-down signal. We don't react," she said, mostly to the teller. "We verify." I set my phone on the counter surface, face up this time, so the notification sat there like a receipt nobody wanted. My ID stayed beside it. The edges of both were aligned without me thinking about it. The supervisor pointed to the activity log printout. "The login attempt is one thing," she said. "This is another. Same pattern." The teller nodded, then reached under the desk and pulled the tray forward. My card was still inside, face down. She didn't pick it up. She just brought the tray into view, as if showing it proved she hadn't taken anything. "Do you want me to return it?" she asked. "Not yet," the supervisor said. She picked up the desk phone and dialed again. The way she dialed was practiced. No pauses, no looking for numbers. She waited with her eyes on the screen, not on me. When someone answered, her voice stayed calm. "Fraud," she said. "I need confirmation on a second sign-in detection while the customer is still in branch." She listened. She wrote a time on the blank form. The pen scratched softly. The line behind me stayed still, like it was holding its breath without admitting it. The teller leaned toward her monitor and opened the call log window again. I saw the boxes and times from the side. She typed 2 short notes, then stopped and looked to the supervisor like she wanted permission to keep going. "Log it," the supervisor said. The teller exhaled and typed more firmly. The keyboard clicks sounded louder now because the lobby had gone so quiet. A customer 2 people back adjusted his coat zipper and froze halfway, like the sound had been too much. He lowered his hands and looked at the floor. The supervisor covered the receiver and looked at me. "Do you recognize any new devices you've used today?" she asked. "No," I said. "Any shared computers?" she asked. "No." She nodded, then uncovered the receiver again. "Customer confirms no," she said into the phone. "I need the trigger source and whether the flag can be cleared in branch." Her eyes stayed on the monitor as she listened. The teller watched her face, trying to read meaning where there wasn't any. The supervisor's jaw tightened once, then loosened. "Okay," she said into the phone. "Send the verification note to the branch record. I'll handle the release." She hung up and didn't move for a beat. She looked at the printed activity log, then at the voicemail transcript the teller had replayed earlier, then at the blank form with her small handwriting. She said, "We amend the note." The teller blinked. "The routine review note?" "Yes," the supervisor said, "because that note is what gets repeated." The teller nodded fast. She clicked into the notes panel again and hovered over the text, as if it might bite. "Don't delete," the supervisor said. "Add." The teller's shoulders dropped. She typed a new line. I couldn't read the words from where I stood, but I could see the rhythm of it, short, factual, no extra. Her fingers stopped. She looked up. The supervisor read the screen. She nodded once. Behind me, the woman with the purse strap shifted her weight and then stopped shifting. The movement had been a mistake. Everyone was trying to be still now, like stillness made them innocent. The supervisor reached down and pulled my card tray forward herself. She slid the tray closer to the keyboard, but still didn't return the card. "Release requires an override log," she said. Not a stamp, not a promise. The teller opened another screen. A small window popped up with fields and drop-downs. The supervisor pointed to one. "Select false positive," she said. The teller's hand hovered, then clicked. Another field appeared. "Add the timestamp," the supervisor said. The teller copied it in. Her fingers paused over the keys, then finished the line. The supervisor watched, then reached into her folder and took out a small, pre-printed slip, something that looked like an internal checklist. She placed it on the counter and tapped the first item with her pen. "Activity log confirmed," she said, and checked it off. She tapped the next. "Compliance voicemail," she said, and checked it off. She tapped the next. "Customer attestation," she said, and slid the form toward me again, the one I'd been about to sign. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake, but it felt heavier than it should have. I signed where the line told me to sign. I pushed the paper back across the counter, careful not to smudge the ink. The supervisor took it without comment. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say sorry. She just checked the box. The teller stared at the screen like she was waiting for it to turn friendly. It didn't. It stayed procedural. The supervisor said, "Now we request release." The teller clicked a button. A small message appeared on her screen. She read it, then looked up. "It says pending," she said. "Pending is normal," the supervisor replied. She reached for the desk phone again, then stopped. Instead, she clicked into a queue view, scanning lines. She pointed at one entry and said to the teller, "That's us." The teller leaned closer. Her lips moved silently as she read. The supervisor wrote one last line on the blank form. Then she tore the form cleanly along a perforation and kept the larger part. The smaller slip she placed near the printer. "What's that?" I asked, because it had my name printed in the top corner. "Receipt queue," the supervisor said, as if she was telling me the weather again. "When the release hits, your withdrawal prints." The teller's eyes flicked to the printer and back to the screen. The printer stayed quiet. My phone sat face up on the counter. The new device sign-in banner had faded, but the screen still felt loud. The supervisor slid my ID back to me. She kept my card in the tray. "A few minutes," she said. "Then we finish." Behind me, the line didn't complain. People just watched the printer like it was the only honest thing in the room. The teller refreshed the queue. Nothing printed. She refreshed it again, slower, like speed had been the problem. Still nothing. Then the teller's screen blinked, and a new line appeared in the queue, an internal note entry, time-stamped, verified. The supervisor leaned in. Her posture changed again, just slightly. "Okay," she said. The teller's hand went to the printer button. The printer woke up with a whir, then stopped, like it had changed its mind. The paper feed light blinked once and went dark. The teller looked at the supervisor, eyes wide but silent. The supervisor didn't look at me. She looked at the empty tray space where paper should have been and said very evenly, "Don't touch anything yet." The supervisor's eyes stayed on the printer like it was a witness. The teller had her hand hovering over the paper tray, ready to pull it open and fix it fast. The supervisor didn't move. She just shook her head once, small. "Don't touch anything yet," she repeated, and the teller froze. The lobby stayed quiet in that particular way, people pretending they weren't watching while watching anyway. Someone's car keys jingled once and then stopped, like the sound had been corrected. The supervisor leaned toward the teller's screen and clicked into the queue again. She didn't hurry. She read the lines in order. Her finger traced the one that mattered, then stopped. "That release is in," she said. The teller blinked. "But the printer, we verify before we fix," the supervisor said. Not harsh, just flat. She reached under the counter and pulled the printer's paper drawer open herself. A stack of clean paper sat inside, too low. She lifted it and set it back with both hands, even. Then she closed the drawer until it clicked. The printer whirred immediately, as if it had been waiting for permission. A sheet fed through, then another. The sound pulled the whole line forward by a fraction, like the room moved without anyone deciding to. The teller caught the pages and held them out to the supervisor first. The supervisor didn't take them right away. She looked at the screen again. "Open the override log," she said. The teller's fingers moved quickly. A small window appeared with a list of entries, each one stamped with time and initials. The supervisor pointed to the newest line. "That one," she said. The teller clicked it open. The entry filled the screen: false positive, trigger source, in-branch verification, release authorized. Clean language. Nothing emotional. No story. Just record. The supervisor nodded once. She reached into her folder and pulled out the same internal checklist slip she'd been using. She checked the last box with the tip of her pen. "Override recorded," she said. She slid my card tray forward. The teller's hands stayed still, waiting for instruction. The supervisor lifted my card from the tray with 2 fingers and placed it on the counter, face down, exactly where I'd set it earlier. The gesture was careful, like returning an object mattered more than returning comfort. My phone vibrated once. Not an alert chime this time, just the soft buzz of a standard notification. I didn't turn it over. I kept my eyes on the counter surface, the scuffs and the shine. The supervisor looked at me. Her expression was the same as it had been the whole time. Calm. Contained. "You're good," she said. It wasn't a reassurance. It was a status update. No one behind me spoke after that. Not the woman with the purse strap. Not the man who'd been clearing his throat. Even the little boy in the chairs stopped swinging his legs. The teller exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. She picked up the printed sheets again and separated them. One was the release confirmation, the other a transaction receipt. "I can process the withdrawal now," the teller said, voice quieter than before. I nodded. She slid the receipt across the counter toward me. The paper was warm at the edge. The ink was crisp. A normal amount. A normal date. A normal line that proved the system had decided I was allowed again. The teller reached for a cash drawer. It popped open with a sharp click that sounded too loud in the silence. She counted bills with her fingers, not looking up. She placed them in an envelope and slid it toward me, stopping it just short of my hand like she'd done with the customer service card earlier. I picked it up and tucked it into my bag. I didn't check it. I didn't open it. The movement would have looked like mistrust, and the room had already carried enough of that. The supervisor gathered the printed activity log and the checklist slip and stacked them. She didn't shred anything. She didn't hide it. She just squared the corners and slid the stack into her folder. The teller's screen refreshed. The banner that had been there temporary hold, review in progress, was gone. The top of the screen looked empty in a way that felt strange, like a stain that had lifted. The teller glanced up at me. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience," she said, like it was the only phrase she was allowed. I didn't answer the apology. I wasn't sure who it belonged to. I set my card back into my wallet and closed it. I turned my phone face down again without looking at the screen. I picked up my ID and put it away. Then I cleared the counter surface. Wallet, phone, ID, gone, like they'd never been there. The supervisor stepped back. She held the gate open for herself and the teller at the same time, then let it close behind her. The latch clicked. I turned to the line. The woman with the purse strap moved forward, eyes on the counter now, not on me. The man behind her looked past me toward the pamphlet rack and then looked away. I walked toward the doors with the same waiting posture I'd had at the brochure rack. Shoulders level, hands steady on the strap of my bag. Outside, the air felt colder than the lobby. My car was still where I'd left it. The world hadn't changed. The bank's doors still opened and shut for other people. I sat in the driver's seat and unfolded the receipt once, just to make sure the numbers were real. Then I folded it again, a single clean crease, and slid it into the glove box. I started the engine. My phone stayed face down in the cup holder as I pulled out,